Hello, everybody. First of all, can I thank you very much for taking time out of your day and indeed to encroach upon your lunchtime. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you get what you want out of this. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Dexter Moscow. That is my real name. It isn't a stage name. Although for many of you who have looked at my LinkedIn profile and perhaps my website, you know that a lot of my time previously was spent with QVC, the shopping channel, where I coached people how to present in that environment. Not the presenters, but the guest presenters, people who'd never presented in that kind of environment before, helping them to construct compelling presentations that don't sell, strangely enough, but influence and persuade people to buy. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. How do we influence and persuade? In that environment, in QVC environment, we're selling to an invisible audience. We have no knowledge of how the reaction is going, whether they're buying in to what we're saying. You have the advantage in the main of being able to see people, to get their reaction, and to a great extent control conversations. And that's also what we're going to look at today. So I hope you're willing to come on this journey with me. And the journey is right. In London here today, it's a horrible, miserable, grey day. So can I take you on this journey? Let's imagine that it's about autumn time and we're walking through a forest and the leaves are slowly floating down to the forest floor. But instead of leaves, it's paper. And as we walk through the paper, they make that wonderful sound that paper and leaves make. So let me ask you this question and just think of it for a couple of seconds. What is the normal color of paper? It's white. It's white normally. Okay, let me take you to the top of Whistler Mountain in Canada. And we're skiing down the mountain. There's snow all around us and people are throwing snowballs at us. Now, what's the normal color of snow? Yeah, it's white. Now, what do cows drink? Okay, how many of you thought or actually said white or milk? Actually, it's water. We know that. But isn't it interesting that by planting some ideas in your head, by taking you on this journey and telling you a story for you to step into, we immediately say milk or white or water. And that's what we're going to look at today. How do we influence and persuade people to take the action that we want them to take? So can I ask you to please ensure you have some paper and a pen in front of you, because there's a lot of information that's going to come at you quite quickly, and hopefully it's going to be meaningful to you. So let's look at that proposition which I just started talking about. The key to your personal, financial, and company success is in your ability to positively influence others to be happy to take the action you desire them to take. Do any of you have problem with that statement? So let me identify it for you, because often in a seminar or in a masterclass when I'm talking about this, people are a bit uncomfortable. They think this is manipulation. So let me identify some of these words here. It's about positively influencing. It's about making people happy to take the action we desire them to take. And let me just focus on that word desire. So it is a mutual thing. It's not about pushing things on people that they don't want. It's understanding what their needs are. And that word desire, for it read passion. Because frankly, if we're not passionate about what we're doing and what we're talking about, then actually we might as well give up. How can you make somebody passionate if you're not passionate yourself? So it's an absolute key situation. And you find that there are many people out there that are passionate about what they do, and it comes over in the speeches and the comments they make. So this is a truism, and I'm going to read it. Today it is no longer enough to be just technically excellent, to be good at what you do. You have to be a master communicator. You have to be able to engage, enroll, infuse people, and again, that word passion, make them passionate about it. So I'm going to ask you this. Don't need to write in or make your comments on this, but who do you consider to be a master communicator? Doesn't have to be a celebrity. It can be somebody that you regard, that is a relative, a grandparent, somebody that when you connect with them, you think, you know, they are really a good communicator, a master communicator. obviously Branson and people like that. So just think of somebody who you regard as being a good communicator, a master communicator, because when you do that, you can, to a certain extent, mirror who they are, what they are, and adopt that persona, if you like. Not to negate your own persona, but to think who you can mirror and match, to borrow their enthusiasm to enthuse others. So let's look at what are the key elements to create compelling conversations to influence other people, and for you to consider these questions as we go through the other part of this presentation. So let's look at these 4 quadrants of how we become more influential people. We need to create rapport. We need to understand the other person's point of view. We need to be able to connect with them so that they feel that we are somebody that they can trust, because that's absolutely at the root of being able to be a convincing communicator, somebody that can influence and persuade. Rapport, let's give you an example of rapport. I was pitching a video idea to a Saab dealership, and I knew that I wanted to sell this idea in. And I was waiting in the reception of the showroom. And, you know, people, especially clients or customers, they keep you waiting, don't they? They think there's a psychological advantage in that. And as the guy walked across the showroom to me, the MD walked across the showroom, before he could say anything, I said to him, you know, I knew I shouldn't have come here. He looked at me very quizzically. What do you mean? I'm surrounded by all of these fantastic vehicles. I knew I shouldn't have come here. And he visibly just relaxed. He didn't feel he was going to be sold to. So do something that is unexpected, even with colleagues who know you very well. Try and create a different kind of rapport, which develops trust. And that in itself, that word again, and I make no apologies for harking on about passion. Find your passion, but also find the passion of other people. When I was on QVC, I couldn't be passionate about everything I sold. Some of it was real toot. But I put myself in a position of understanding who would be interested in it. So I was able to create passion for them. Now, integrity, this is the 4th, and if you like, the key element. What is integrity? Somebody once said, integrity is not saying what you would do, but actually doing it. Because we're not known by the promises we make, we're known by the promises we keep. So those are the essential elements of, first of all, creating a rapport, creating that trust, creating the passion and integrity. Because when you do that, people will buy into you and at least listen to what you want to talk about. So let's look at this. This is an interesting exercise of why do people do anything. So I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to grab a piece of paper and your pen. And if possible, in this short period of time, just think about perhaps 5 words that would indicate, why do people buy anything? Why do they buy stuff? Why do you buy stuff? So think of words or a short description of why you buy anything. And I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to consider that. Okay. So let me give you some of the words that have come out of the various seminars that I conduct. I need it. I want it. I want to buy it because it makes me feel important. I want to be attractive. I want to be happy. I want to have fun. I want to gain knowledge. I want to improve my skills. I want to be more efficient because it's new or because it's better than what our friends have. Now, I'm sitting here with a great big long list in front of me, and I'm sure that there are many that you can think of. Well, I'm going to ask you one question here. There is a similarity to a lot of those words. Do you make the connection? The reason that people buy anything is because of emotional reasons. And this is really key. There are 4 elements here which we'll go through. People buy emotionally. They decide logically. So first of all, we need to tap into their emotion. And we can only do that by understanding the other person's perspective. Yes, it's our emotion, it's our passion and desire, but what is going on for them that what we are talking about can influence and persuade them? The root in is emotion. Then obviously you have to give them key facts and figures. That's the logic part of it. And these two characters, one certainly was logical, the other one was emotional. So that's the key here. And it's a really important framework. So let's look at this other thing. What is their motivation? The key motivation, and this is factually true and scientifically researched, people are more concerned about the pain they're suffering, the concerns they have, the things that keep them awake at night, than what it's going to do, the features and benefits. People don't buy on features and benefits. They buy on what's in it for them. The WIFM, which is not a radio station, it's what's in it for them and what's in it for us. So move people from a position of pain to a position of pleasure or resolution. What you're suggesting, whether you're selling to a customer, you're engaging with your teams, or you're looking to talk to the executive, think of the things that are causing them aggravation. From an executive point of view, it normally is about legacy. What is going to protect their legacy? What is going to help them move perhaps from their existing position to another position, or to gain buy-in from their colleagues? I'm going to give you a quote, which is one of my most favorite quotes. It comes from a lady by the name of Maya Angelou. Now, Maya Angelou suffered terribly, discrimination. She was of an age where there was still an element of slavery, and certainly that's true today in some countries. Now, Maya Angelou said this: people may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Again, it's that confirmation that it is about creating that emotional connection. So what do we do? How do we make that emotional connection? First is to find out about them. What's happening for them? I was working with Lego, in fact still do some work with Lego, and one of the first sessions we did, I asked them this question: what is happening for your trading partners, both in their business and for them personally? And I had the questions come back to me. Well, I think that this is happening, and we assume. And I was so delighted, because it gave me the opportunity to say to them, go and find out. If you don't know, and if you're not certain, then you might as well forget it. You'll kill the deal. I've coined a phrase which says, assumption kills communication. If you're assuming you know what is going on for your colleagues, your customers, your partners, because this is not only about business, this is about us personally. How do we connect with people in our family? How do we get people to see our point of view? How do we persuade and influence people to see our point of view? The way is to understand what's happening for them. So the other element is, how do you construct these stories? How do you get an idea of what you have achieved? It isn't bragging. If you've done something that is successful, if your team has done something successful, if your department has been successful, that's not bragging. That's giving somebody the idea of how you can help them. And this is the key to this phrase here. Don't tell people what you do. Tell them what you have done for others. You know, there's a phrase which says nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. The reality is, because of that reputation, you need to build your reputation. But don't build it by saying, I'm so good because this is what I've done. You can build it by saying, I've done this for others, and this is the benefit they gained. So if you like, this is the first bit of homework. The first bit of homework is to think of your success stories. Write them down. So often, especially in business, we're focused on what isn't working, where we failed, whatever that may mean. I think Churchill said, success is one step further than failure. So the key here is to identify those success stories. Go back to your college days, go back to your school days, look at what you have achieved for your family. Perhaps you arranged a major event. All of those build your success. And if you like those stories, you can wear like the cloak of Harry Potter, where you put it on and immediately you gain a much higher level of your understanding, of your confidence, and that means you look confident to others. So take time, write those stories out, acknowledge your successes, because it really will build your faith in yourself. And again, coming back to that, trust, integrity, passion, all of that, that will come flowing through, if that's the right word. Now, I'd like to spend just a little bit of time on this. This is the 6 Principles of Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Now, by definition, this in itself is a seminar. And so what I'd like you to do is go on the net and do your own research about this. I'm going to go through some of his specifics in terms of what he regards as being these elements of influence and persuasion. And so to a great extent, I'm going to use his words. So I really do suggest that you go on and learn about this. So consensus, if you like, for that read social proof. When people are uncertain about a course of action, they tend to look to those around them to guide their decisions and actions. They especially want to know what everybody else is doing. That's what consensus is about. So for us, that means testimonials from satisfied customers, or as we've just talked about, those success stories for your department. Because when you do that, when people see that you have gained a consensus and people have bought into those ideas, then they feel much more relaxed and much more prepared to listen. So the second element is authority. Now, again, it translates to those stories. What is your authority? How long have you been in your position? What have you achieved within your company? All of those things give you authority, and it's again that cloak of Harry Potter, where when you put your cloak of authority and authenticity, because that's what it's about, authentic people really get people to buy into them. When I worked at QVC, and I trained a lot of people who'd never, as I said, never sold in that environment. And what we found, what came out of this, is that if they were actors, it was impossible because they took on a role. But if the inventors, the designers, the people that were very close to the product, when they spoke, they had that authority, that sense of really belonging and understanding. And that came across, and people bought into them immediately. Similarity, there's a truism here. People like them. And that goes at the root of finding out what is happening for other people. Because when they understand that you understand their needs, their pains, their concerns, then that creates that similarity. And then you can lead them when you know that that's where they want to go, to make those connections once again. Reciprocity, this is the most interesting one, I think, of all. Reciprocity is doing something for somebody without any real concern about gain. But people, because people are people, they feel obliged. They feel obliged to reciprocate. So if you can do something for somebody, then they feel they need to help you. That could be a recommendation, that could be some help that you need ultimately, that you've given to them first of all. So reciprocity is absolutely key here. Scarcity, now QVC terms, that meant that if we had a product and we're selling, then we would say, and it had to be true, we only have 10, we only have 5, and we would do that countdown. The reality, of course, is nobody knew how many we started with. But scarcity, in terms of what we need to do in our environment, in working with our colleagues, perhaps scarcity is time. When we are giving of our time to them, knowing that we are rushed, and perhaps we can say, look, I haven't got a really lot of time to do this, but let me see what I can do. The reciprocity comes in, scarcity comes in. And can you see this is why it's a circular situation? Because each one of these are linked to the others. Consistency, the last element of this, is really about the ability to be consistent, to ask somebody to perhaps do a small thing, but then you build to the bigger thing. It also comes into that integrity, that when you say you'll do something, you do it. Because consistency creates influence, influence is persuasion, and these are those 6 elements. So please take my advice, read more, read how relevant these elements can be for you, and then it's another tool, if you like, another load of arrows in your quiver that you can fire whenever necessary. So let's go to the nitty-gritty of this conversation we're having today. It's the 9 steps to sales potential. Yeah, I apologize, it's an acronym. The reason I've done it is because I feel that acronyms are easier to remember. And this is a step-by-step process. Can I, at this stage, thank you so much for responding to a number of the things that you wanted to get out of this session. And this really has come out of that, because a number of you, in fact, the vast majority of you, have asked for top tips and processes. This is a step-by-step process of how, when you're sitting in front of a new client, colleagues, whoever you are seeking to influence, persuade, this controls the conversation. So personal impact. For that, read rapport. What is it that you can do to create a different perception? I was working with a finance company, and they had a perception of this particular guy who was quite slow of speech. He was a Scotsman. He was a little bit dour. And so he had to make a presentation. He had to convince his colleagues around a boardroom table to support him. And what he did to make his personal impact, for somebody that they already had a perception of, he walked up to a flip chart, which we had specially put there, no PowerPoint, just a flip chart, and he wrote on it, £1 million. And he looked round at the audience, round the boardroom table. He said, this is what I need you to help me with to make £1 million more on fees. And it stopped them in their tracks, because he'd never done that. He'd never communicated. So how do you create that personal impact? How do you create the bonding and rapport? And that is very much at the initial stages of the meeting, so your perception is different, but actually personal impact and rapport carries right the way through this process. So if you like, read personal impact on each one of these steps, and it is a step-by-step process. So the next is outline. For that, read agenda. What is it that you are going to talk about in that meeting? Now, there are a number of ways to set this up, and I always recommend don't send emails, don't communicate as a certain person in America is doing by Twitter. Pick up the phone and speak to people. Find out exactly what their needs are and what they want included in the agenda, because it's a mutuality. Influence and persuasion is about mutuality. Find out what their needs are, and then you put your needs on. So the agenda is even before you step in the room. And it may involve how long you're going to be speaking for, to make sure people take that time. Who is going to be in the room? What is the ultimate advantage, and what is the ultimate thing that you and they want out of that meeting? So anything you can think of that needs to be included in that agenda, set it up before you step into the room and reiterate it once you're in the room. And I'm going to go, just to reinforce what we've just said, define the content of the discussion, the agenda, and the desired outcome. So let's go to the next step, because actually it is the most important step of all, trouble. Trouble is about pain. Do you remember that, what we said, that people are more concerned about pain to take them to a position of pleasure? So in this kind of environment, we need to know what the issues, both the organization is facing and the individual is facing. And the important thing is here, you need to ask permission to go personally. And because it's an emotional element, you really need to connect with them and ask permission to do this. In any conversation, and the thing I must say right up front, these processes are not hypothetical. These processes I use to gain business for myself, to influence and persuade clients so that I can work with them. So the trouble step in any conversation, it's a 70%, 30% rule. And 70% is what they are talking about. 30% is what we're talking about. But our 30% is about asking deeper and more relevant questions. Because when you ask those relevant questions, you get a view of what needs to happen so that you can target what you can do for them to make it relevant. Now, trouble should be the biggest step, because you'll spend most of your time there. It's, if you like, this. You're kind of scratching away at an itch that you keep on pulling at until it becomes a sore. Then it becomes a running sore. And people then look at you and think, how can you help me? They may even say, what can you do to resolve this? So it's not even a question of closing them. They'll close you. If we do our job properly, then that trouble step is fantastic. Now, the key is that often when we have meetings, especially with new customers or new clients, that we may be speaking not to the decision maker. So everybody is who else needs to be involved in this decision-making process. And you need to qualify how you ask those questions. You can't say, all right, who makes the decisions in this place? That's a bit harsh, but that's the thought behind it. Perhaps you can say, you know, often when I have to make a buying decision, I speak to my colleagues, I speak to the MD, I speak to the FD. I certainly, when people try and sell to me, I say, well, you know, I need to have a chat with my wife. Because then you can say, who is it that you would need to consult with? And this is so important, because if the decision maker is not sitting in front of you, you want to know that so that you can school the person to create the ambassador in the person sitting in front of you that will then sell you on. I was in a meeting yesterday, and it came out during the discussion following this process that I needed to meet with this guy's CEO. And so I gave him all the facts and figures. I told him how much it would cost him, which is something else on this step-by-step process. But I said, I tell you what, I'm not going to do a proposal. I don't do proposals. But what I'm very happy to do is sit down with your CEO and with your FD, if that is important, to chat through what we have discussed. I cannot rely upon that person to be my ambassador. What I can do is make sure that he understands exactly what the offering is so that he can sell me in, and then I do my job when I'm sitting in front of that person. So we talked about numbers. Yes, that's the budget. But don't talk in terms of how much it's going to cost. Talk in terms of the saving, of what it's going to mean to them in increases. So find out, first of all, what the financials are, what the situation is, where they're missing out, because then you can target that budget discussion by showing your interventions, your ideas will impact the business and them personally. Target, very simply, that's the agenda, the next agenda. Where do we go from here? If they bought in, perhaps it means another meeting. It could be that at that stage you say, are we likely to do business together? So be very upfront. I always say in this situation, we should be clear and specific about what we want out of that conversation. And it may be the conversation is that they're just not going to do it, or perhaps they're not going to do it yet. So we need to know, we need to qualify it all the way along. Now this next step includes, well, it could be, and it's very rare that I would actually offer an immediate solution. I would say, let me go away and think about it, and then I will come back to you, and we'll have another meeting, exactly what I will be doing. But actually, it's interesting. If we've done our job properly, people say, okay, you understand the troubles that we're experiencing, and I get the sense that you can resolve it for us. So where do we go next? So either you can itemize it, or you can say, okay, let's look at some of the processes. Don't give away your gold, but you can give away some of the ideas that you can come up with for them. Afterthoughts, this again, and each one of these is interlinked, although it is a step-by-step process. Afterthoughts gives us the opportunity to address perhaps other situations that we haven't already uncovered. So many times I used to go into a meeting and think I understood exactly what the problems were and my solution to that problem. And there was a hell of a lot of stuff on the other side of the table that I hadn't even addressed. I've left loads of stuff still to be resolved that somebody else has picked up. So this afterthoughts gives you the opportunity to say, okay, we've had a long and interesting conversation. Is there any questions I should have asked you that I haven't already asked you? Because then that allows you to uncover where there may be other business. It also enables you to ask the question, is there anything else you need to know that is preventing us from doing business? You may even offer them a percentage if that's how their mind works. Certainly FDs think in terms of that. And they would say, perhaps, all right, well, I'm at 80% bought in. Okay, where's the missing 20%? That step, the afterthoughts, gives you the opportunity of looking at the conversations and being able to gain further information. Again, it's that personal impact, that rapport that drives right the way through this. So the last of our journeys, this steps that we're taking, is the last requests. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to take you out and shoot you. What it means is that it perhaps is the opportunity to see if you're not going to do business with them, and it may come out like that you know, you're just not connecting. Who else would they know? Ask for referrals. It may be that you're not going to do business with them, but you may be able to do business with other people within the organization or other people that they know. I want to come back just to an idea about this afterthoughts. Afterthoughts sometimes means that there's going to be a longer discussion and something that may be a heated discussion. Now, it's a process called disagreeing agreeably. And we have to think of the language that we use when we do not negate somebody else's argument, but kind of cushion it for our next point. So when you think of arguing with somebody, and you hear it all the time on radio with the politicians and the rest of it, you hear the word yes, but, or yes, however. Now, however is a posh way of saying but. If you can stop that language, because let me give you an example. I don't know you, but I'm sure a number of you have absolutely lovely partners. And I could say to you, I know your partners. They are lovely people, but. Now, immediately I've negated the first part of that conversation. You're thinking, what the hell is he going to say now? So take it out of the conversation. If you want to discuss something with somebody, you can say, yes, I understand your point of view. Can I suggest something else? You're cushioning your next comment. It's a very effective way, again, both in our personal lives and in our business lives. So just think about the afterthoughts and the last requests. Now, we have gone through this quite quickly, purposefully, because the key here is about what you want to know, the questions and the concerns that you have. But I recently had a conversation with this particular organization called Business Connections Live. And you can see at the bottom of the screen there is this link to this 1 hour conversation between myself and the presenter. And there you will hear a number of the kind of languages, the kind of words, the phrases that I would use in that kind of discussion. So if you feel it is worthwhile for you to spend another hour of your time just linking into this discussion, it will reinforce a lot of what we've just been talking about. Now, there are further resources for you. These are, well, there's one book which you can download immediately free. That's the 7 Keys to a Perfect Presentation. And if you like, a lot of what we've been talking about is face-to-face and one to a few. This book is about how you construct a presentation to one to many. So if you think it is worthwhile, please download that and see what you think. And again, you will be connecting with me because I'll see your emails requesting the book, and I will respond to you and ask what is specifically you want out of this. No pressure, but I think it will add a little extra dimension of what we've been talking about. The next element is the Moscow Method. Now, this is a bit presumptuous because the Moscow Method will not be published until a little bit later in this year. But again, it's an acronym. You can see the perfect is an acronym as well. Each element there is a thing you can hang the presentation on, the hook that you can hang the presentation. Similarly, the Moscow Method is about how to sell without selling. It is a process to help you prepare. So Moscow, the M is mindset. The O is objective, not only our objective, their objective. The rest is sensory acuity, congruency, order, and work the room. So that will be available a little bit later in the year, and if you are interested, then I can send you the details of how to get that. So let me, before we put up the final poll, let me just encapsulate some of the points that we've been made. And I've identified that there are 5 specifics, hopefully, that have been meaningful for you, not necessarily in this particular order. I sound like somebody from Britain's Got Talent, don't I? So the first is to understand what is happening for the other person. Make the emotional connection through your stories. Understand what's in it for them. Number 3 is speak their language. Don't paraphrase their language. Use their language. Understand what their experience is, and then tell the relevant story that relates to that experience. You've heard this one before. Let them do most of the talking. You will be amazed how much information you can gain. And, important, identify their pain, anxiety, and then you will understand their motivation. Thank you so much for your time.